Susan good?
That work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Are we good?
Just waiting on the YouTube. Okay, we're live on YouTube.
We are?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to the public portion of the Chatham Township Committee Workshop Meeting on May 9th, 2023. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first thing I want to do tonight is announce that the Recreation Department will be hosting a Kids Spring Festival on Saturday at 11 a.m. at Mountain View Field. One of the main attractions this year will be kite flying, so bring your own kite or purchase one from a local vendor on site and take to the skies with your friends and family. The Spring Festival is a wonderful opportunity to come together as a community and celebrate the arrival of warmer weather. It's a chance to meet new people, catch up with old friends, and create lasting memories with your loved ones. We hope you will join us for this special event. Now, can we move on to a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
It's just all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we're going straight into the first hearing of citizens. Currently, the committee meeting room is open to the public, and we look forward to having you join us. Additionally, this meeting is being made available for public participation remotely. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during the public comment session by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand, whether in person or online. When you are recognized to speak, please say your name, spell your last name, and give your street number. As a reminder, all public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, we will wait until you finish speaking before responding. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment during the public comment period. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments, and duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full according to the guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services. Was there any written comments?
No.
And is there anybody online?
No hands raised.
I see nobody here, so I'm going to close the public comment session and move straight into the reports. First off this evening, we have the Chatham Township Environmental Commission report. Do you want to come up?
So, in full disclosure, I don't know how
You
this
can come
works.
join us.
Oh, okay. I don't know how this works. I sent my report over to Greg and Z today. It's my first time doing this. I don't think you want me to read it all. That would be a waste of everyone's time.
No. It's just some highlights that you want to
Highlights. C-Tech
make
is
sure that we know.
55 years old this year, which is pretty cool. I didn't realize that until writing this, so we should.
And just for the record, in case anyone doesn't know her, this is Jessica Romeo.
The chair of the Environmental Commission.
Sorry. Thanks, Greg. You know, we met 10 times last year. The green team falls under the Environmental Commission. So this is a concern of ours going forward. We, for the first time ever, we attained silver status, which is a big deal. Right now, nobody on our Environmental Commission has capacity to reapply for Sustainable Jersey when we are up, which is not that far down the road. We're expired in 2024. So it's a lot of work, and we don't have anyone on our Environmental Commission that has the time to put into that. We had someone on our Environmental Commission who was retired and didn't have young kids at home. So she was able to really go with it, but none of us have that capacity. So I think it's a conversation to have moving forward, how we can leverage help, because I don't think we want to lose that status. One of the things that comes with silver status is the ability to apply for and attain grants. And I think we're really lucky to have Z. He seems to be really knowledgeable and good at going after grants and getting them. No, he's really been helpful. Some things we talked about would be using the silver status to apply for grants for things like water bottle refill stations at our open space areas. Like Shun Pike, I would love one at Colony Pool. A lot of people are there. It'd be nice for them to fill a water bottle there. Another idea was we've really, over the past few years, have been stressing with the community the importance of planting with native plants, and that's part of our annual report. It was our 3rd year with a really successful native plant sale. Every year we sell out. We partner with the Great Swamp Watershed and a number of other towns. And residents really have this hunger for learning about and installing native plants in their yards. We have a couple native plant gardens we've installed here, one at Shunpike Field, one at Colony. It'd be great to apply for a grant to get educational signage so residents understand what they're looking at, why it's there, how it helps us in our community and other communities to create these things we call pollinator pathways. Another thing that we've talked about is stormwater management. So with climate change and these increased frequencies of more intense storms comes flooding. Nobody wants a basement full of water. Nobody wants their street flooded. So what are things we can look at in our community to become more resilient, to get ahead of this before it is a big issue for residents in our community? One of the things that comes to mind is protecting our tree canopy, mature trees, because trees help with water mitigation and flood mitigation. But I think it's something worth looking into as an environmental commission, and with you know, John Rushke has helped and everything. Just where are our sensitive areas? Where can we look to do things and do better? So I think that's something the Environmental Commission can focus on. We do, but it might be a priority, bigger priority moving forward. In terms of stuff we've done a lot of educating of the community. We've held seminars at the library. We've done tree seedling giveaways, like I said, the plant sale. We had a big talk on topics about solar power, microgrids and heat pumps, how to tap into tax credits to get these things installed. What else was big on here? So the Monarch Butterfly Project and the installation of the native plant garden that I talked about before. Those things are doing really well, they're flourishing. I put up a big post today on our Environmental Commission page talking about one of the first plants to flower, and people love that post, they're asking questions, so that's great. The pesticide-free lawn care and field maintenance, it's really important for the health of our community, for the people, for the animals, for our drinking water. We don't want runoff, but we need to take that to the next level and educate the community to be mindful about what they're applying on their lawns at home. We had an annual open work day at Green Village Pond, so people could come out, clean up the trail, learn about the trail, and understand our open space areas and why they're so important. We had a sustainability fair that we partnered with the borough on. The police department was good enough to come and show off their hybrid vehicle. People loved that. We were really successful with the help of Z in getting the styrofoam recycling project up and running. So residents from Chatham Township can now bring their styrofoam to Madison, and it's a shared service, and it's really been fantastic. I think it's a great way to reduce garbage, and people can feel good about taking their styrofoam there. Electric vehicle charging stations, finally that grant came to fruition. Dot Stillinger and Maureen Kelly had applied for that and won that a number of years ago. With the help of Z, we actually had the charging stations installed. I actually see people using them every time I drive up and down Shunpike, so that's pretty cool. Those are our highlights. I don't know if you guys have questions.
Are there vacant seats on the Environmental Commission right now?
As of last week, we have one vacancy, an alternate position. Someone had to step down for family obligations.
I'm just thinking about what you said about the silver status, and if somebody, you know, obviously that would be, you know, maybe you could find somebody who has that bandwidth, and we can help, you know, if there's anybody watching at home on TV right now.
Right.
You know, like, who's interested, let Jessica know.
Yeah, that would be great.
I just wanted to say thank you for all your work and the work of the Environmental Commission. I often will help out with things, and they're always the ones that are with wheelbarrows and loads of plants, and it's just a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of labor, and what we see is a beautiful garden in the end, oftentimes, or something that's been cleaned up, and you know, we don't realize where it's coming from. So I just, you know, please, thank you to you, and thank you to the team for all that work.
Thanks. The other biggie I forgot to mention was the Rolling Knoll site, which We haven't had a meeting in a while with Great Swamp and the National Wildlife Refuge, but that is something that we always keep an eye on.
Wonderful, thank you so much for coming and providing us with this report. And we are very, very grateful for all your work to the community and for leading the Environmental Commission.
Thank you.
And you guys do so much great work, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, next we're gonna go to finance. Deb, you wanna come up? All right.
So Mayor, for the agenda for the next meeting is the final hearing, the public hearing and the adoption for the budget. And we also have 4 resolutions, chapter 159 resolutions. These are all good things. They're to amend the budget after it's been adopted, but in a good way, because these are all 4 grants that we've received. One's a municipal aid grant for Pine Street, local aid infrastructure fund grant for ADA and pedestrian improvements throughout the township. We also have the Morris County Trails grant that we received for Hillside Trail, right, John? Phase 2 for design. And what was also added here is another grant that the chief was alerted to from the state for ALPR additions. So that's 4 resolutions. Debbie's here if you have any questions on any of that.
Any questions on the budget? Any discussion?
I got one question on the budget, well, a couple questions on the budget. I saw the natural gas in our budget has been brought up to $112,000. Last year we expended $27,000. I'm assuming that has something to do with a spike in natural gas commodities, which has since completely collapsed from like $9 down to $2.50 in the last like 2.5 months. So if this budget was being worked on, it makes some sense that we would need maybe a 4x increase from 27,000 to 112. But given that it's collapsed and natural gas prices are actually below where they were last year, I'm wondering how we're being billed for that and what the logic is there for that 4x increase.
The budget was estimated based on the cost that we were paying in the beginning of the month and ones that we had already expended, and that's what we used to estimate this.
So are our costs variable then?
It is variable. Every month, we don't have any utility bills that are gonna be consistent from month to month. So you're always using what you've expended the prior year, what you've expended so far for this year, and use that to come up to what you're going to anticipate as a budget appropriation for this year.
Okay.
I just want to add, we also want to be mindful because, now we're going into the warmer weather, obviously, but, we still have the winter coming ahead, or late fall, early winter coming ahead. So we don't really know what could happen, come October, November, December. But one of the things that I am looking at, and probably in the next couple months, is looking at auctions, so that way we can actually try and get more competitive rates. So I've been talking to some energy consultants on that. So if that pans out, then great, this is just money that can go to our fund balance.
Okay. Well, we have the same situation with electricity, is 3x electricity. It's the same answer.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I bring this up, obviously, is combination spend last year is 52,000. And what we have budgeted here is 182,000, right? So it's in those 2 categories, it's almost 4x. And I looked at some other budgets from the neighboring towns, and they don't have a commensurate type of 4x movement there. I'm just wondering if we have more information now because of the commodity collapse, and looking forward, we have a little bit more clarity. Maybe you would look at adjusting that.
I'm sorry, for electricity, you're referring to which line?
I'm looking at the draft right now. I could find it for you in the whole budget, but it's 26,127.
I'm sorry, what document are you looking at? I apologize.
I'm looking at the proposed 2023 budget. This is the draft document. This is the Excel. Don't really have a need of this.
Got it, okay, so that figure, has changed, because the electricity is up to, at least the last count went up to 33,000. So there's still some bills that come in, or get charged, but the charges are up to 33,000 for 2022.
Oh, so the amount that we have expended here is not correct?
That one has changed, yeah. So some of these numbers, due to processing
That could-
bills and, sorry,
That was
go ahead.
from 12/31, when we started the process. And then when you update, because we still had 2021 bills that were coming in the beginning of this year that had to be paid, because the utilities are usually a month or sometimes a month and a half to 2 months behind when we get the bill.
And I understand. I received this well past when the audit was complete, so I would have expected that this would have been, audited numbers.
The
Yeah,
audit will pick up the 12/31/2022 numbers. They will not incorporate anything that is spent in 2023 against 2022 budget. Those are now gonna be charged against a reserve.
Budget.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the same thing with the natural gas. So natural gas, that went up to, in terms of what was expended, almost 32,000.
Okay, I mean, the 32,000 versus 112, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, got still.
Well, I
being
explained why
flags.
it's higher, or why we're projecting for higher, but I wanted to clarify that the numbers that are on there, are just from the 2022 budget, not including expenditures from 2022 against the reserve budget.
Okay. And then the budget itself on sheet 40B, I think we've got last year's numbers for the capital improvement fund. We don't have this year's numbers on the budget we introduced. So it doesn't tie out, right? So it should be it says $1,050,000 here, whereas that was last year's capital spend. And this year we have 800,000 is what our capital spend is overall. So I think we have just a straight error that we need to correct for public consumption and posting of documents.
What sheet are you referring to?
40B,
No, I believe that's correct, because it's including the sewer.
40B.
oh, sorry, 40B and 40C. But actually, how does 40B, how does that tie out there? Because the sewer says 250, so.
So how does what tie out? Because I'm not seeing a difference here. The numbers are still the same.
And this is the capital budget, which is just a plan. This isn't the actual budget.
Okay.
So these were just
Okay, no,
basically
that makes sense
estimates
to
of
me
the
then.
plan.
Oh, I appreciate that answer, that makes sense, ties out to me then. We just had- That's good.
Alright, does anybody else have any questions?
I just have one more. Which just goes back to, just back to our open space, the expended amount versus what was on salaries and wages, in that amount. So the difference in what we're spending to maintain the land this year is, in 2023, the proposed budget is $220,000. Last year, we expended $385,369. Is that still the number, or am I working off the wrong number?
The paid or charged
That's right.
for salaries.
Yes.
It would actually be a higher number when we budgeted the 385, that's where it's gonna max out. Any excess that we had to spend will now have to hit your reserves, so that's where that's gonna be coming out. So that's basically utilizing some of our reserves. It was actually more in the nature of 420 and change.
420 to maintain, and we're budgeting 220. And I'm guessing that this 220 amount, the salaries and wages, is really, mostly related to Colony Pool, almost
Correct.
exclusively. And that would be both DPW and that would be all total salaries and wages, right? That would be both seasonal and the DPW's time there. Is that
No,
how
that
that
would
was?
be
Just Colony
just
Pool
seasonal.
staff.
Just seasonal staff, no maintenance from,
Okay, does anybody else have any questions?
In terms of the process, a resident had asked me, about the budget presentation tonight, which I did refer them, because you did a very comprehensive budget presentation at the last meeting. So, the next meeting is going to be,
The next meeting, I could do it before, I would like to speak to you two as finance committee, but I can do it at the beginning of the meeting again, just as I did with the last meeting. Or I could do a meeting beforehand, for the public, outside of the meeting. It's really up to whatever you all wish. I'm happy to do as many presentations as you like, and whenever you'd like them.
I mean, again, I thought it was very comprehensive, which is why I didn't think there was a need to go in depth this round, so.
Yeah.
But I, and it was just one person who reached out. I mean, unless you're gonna drill down in more detail, and
Yeah.
there's more detail to drill down to.
Not necessarily, because I mean, I could drill down in more detail, but if I do it in one area, what's, and then should I do it in the other areas and to what extent? I'm happy to do whatever, and, if they have any questions, I'd be more than willing to sit down with them, also meet with them one-on-one too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perhaps, they can see the recording of it, go back on YouTube, cause we also asked you questions during
Right.
that, and afterwards too, I don't.
Yeah, okay.
But feel free to refer any residents to me if you like. I'd just sit down with them one-on-one, talk to them on the phone, whatever it is, and go over it with them.
Okay.
All right, so I guess you're done. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Debbie.
Debbie.
Thanks, Debbie.
Have a good one. All right, Chief, you ready? Great. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Howdy. Long time no see.
Yes.
Mostly, we talked about the SLEO, talked about the SLEO partially in executive session. Are there any
Yep.
questions for the chief on that? Otherwise, we, will have a resolution for the next meeting to make that reclassification. Okay.
That sounds
And
good.
Next one is the noise. If
Okay.
you could give a little context to that, for them, please.
So over the years, we've been getting calls over to Cooter Field on noise complaints. What they normally consist of is the high school athletic teams will warm up with some music, and we get anonymous complaints. So I'm looking to possibly get an exemption, because I think it's an important part of the athletic program. And quite honestly, I think it's straining our resources a little too much. We respond up there, our only recourse is to shut them down. Parents aren't happy with it,
Yeah,
my officers aren't happy
so
with
it's
it.
like pep bands type of thing,
They play,
or like?
some songs on the loudspeaker
Okay,
when they're warming up.
so it's not even like.
No, it's not a
it's
band.
Oh, okay.
It's,
Right, it's just like.
it's amplified music.
Yeah.
Hype music.
All
Yeah.
right, yeah, all right.
It's like Chinese games. Yeah.
Right,
So I'm looking to get some type of exemption.
okay,
Now, there's already an exemption in there for parades and other events.
yeah,
There's also language in there that says anything determined by the Township Committee, to be an event.
can we have games being an event?
Yeah. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can I ask, I wouldn't even, it's based on the noise, it's a violation if the noise is over a certain level
Well,
at
any
the
amplified
property
music
line.
is a violation of the ordinance.
So it's not
so-
even.
Yeah, so
Wow.
different
It's like
categories.
literally, isn't it literally like if the music goes over to the next person's
It can't
yard?
cross property lines.
Yeah, something
So-
ridiculous like that, which
So there's
is-
different sections of noise ordinances generally,
Mhm.
right? So you've got noise ordinances as they relate to construction and when certain contractors can make noise and what days and hours. Then you have noise in terms of measuring decibels and whether that can, whether an air conditioner is too loud or some type of noise. And then you have music, loud kind of, from amplified noises, the chief said, whether it's on a parade route or whether it's from somebody's backyard playing loud music, and, a neighbor can say, oh, well, they're having a party and I can hear the music there, so that doesn't necessarily need a decibel measurement, and so what we're talking about is that kind of amplified music.
Yeah.
Now, all of these, just to clarify, right now are under our Board of Health ordinances, so, modifications to those would be under the Board of Health. So in terms of what options you have, or, two, one is to make a formal recommendation to the Board of Health as to how you would like them to change that legislation, and the other one is you can adopt a separate ordinance outside of, and I'll defer to the acting attorney for a moment, but adopt another ordinance to address those types of situations, which would, fall within your purview, but outside the Board of Health.
Can we do both?
You could, in theory. you could.
Some towns do.
It's not uncommon.
Just so that we're,
Because if it's under the Board of Health, then the health officer is gonna enforce it.
right.
But if it's.
And it takes it away from you guys, right?
As
Well,
long as
they're still responsible.
Yeah, we're still responsible, but as long as there's an exemption, you don't have
Then
to shut
you
them
don't
down.
Right, it becomes discretionary, they don't have to.
Got
And
it.
the only thing we have now is we have to shut them
Yeah,
down.
and then that's like, alright, it's like, they're playing football.
Yeah, but it's not,
I mean, these are reasonable hours of the day, right?
Yeah.
it's 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
So-
it's
It
hard.
doesn't seem to happen for the football team as much
Okay.
as it does for like lacrosse and
Okay,
some other teams, but, because I think the football team has a band. And
okay,
they only play on Saturdays, they have like one night game a year, so.
got it. I mean, I'm fine with,
Adopting a separate ordinance would seem kind of weird, because what would we be adopting? Because what we're talking about is a loophole from the existing ordinance, or a carve out, or a waiver, right?
Or would it be like defining,
I mean, you could create a whole, essentially you could duplicate the.
You could duplicate what's currently in your code, and what you would do is one of the ways to address it would be to adopt another ordinance, but the ordinance would be facially the same as what exists. You would just have a little exception at the end that says, exempt from this article would be noises commonly associated with high school sports or something like that, or
Right.
within the discretion of, township officials, so that you don't have to, I mean, that's how you could do it. You could change it in the definitions area. I'm just not familiar enough with your
got,
code,
yeah, no, I
But,
understand.
the common course of action would be to simply, amend the existing ordinance to have the exemption that the chief is talking about, to give them the discretion they're looking for.
My only concern is I know the Board of Health only meets like quarterly or something, that's why I was like, well, can we go to like, make sure it's done quickly, to.
Board of Health has a meeting on Thursday, then they meet again in June, and then after June, it's every other month, so it would be feasible to.
So
Perhaps
then
make a
can we
referral for
make a
now.
referral,
If they don't
yeah.
follow up with it, then, have the township attorney
Or
draft
make-
some ordinance.
That's what I would say, yeah.
Do we know, is there anything currently designate, I'm just going on what you told me here, but if the ordinance applies, has exemptions, like you said, for parades and whatnot?
There are a few exemptions.
And quote unquote, anything determined by the committee to be an exemption? That's
I
like a
have the
catch-all?
language here, it's not really, it's very vague,
Right.
so it
Can we
doesn't.
pass a resolution?
But I was just wondering, can we just make a resolution that
Right.
says, just
It
FYI,
says
for the
no.
purpose of this statute, the Township Committee considers high school sporting events to be a designated event?
That would probably be the simplest solution if possible.
He would probably have to look at, you're not
Yeah,
familiar
that's,
with
yeah,
the
you gotta be careful there. I'm hesitant to say you can do it by way of a resolution, just because, again, the exemption language, Chief, that you're referring to, is that exemption language that's captured in the noise ordinance itself, or is that, a separate section of the code, because that's kind of germane.
Oh, you have the whole ordinance. Perfect.
So here's the language that I was referring to initially. And here's the actual exemption. See, it's in one of the subsections.
Can we get copies of these too?
Yeah,
Chief
I'll
So-
email it right now to that, but it's section E of, Board of Health ordinances 4-3.2, and, the part that the chief is saying is, none of the equipment, instruments, or devices here and above mentioned shall be used outdoors at any time in a manner that will create any noise disturbance across a residential real property boundary unless such operation is in connection with a public or other special event authorized by the governing body of the township. And it continues, and such operation and use is in accordance with the specific terms and conditions set forth in the authorization. So I guess what you were asking, Mayor, is can you do a resolution that, or that we,
Yeah.
we said,
We
is
authorize
the resolution,
Chatham
this
High
is our
School
special
sporting events
authorization.
as,
Yeah.
as people
So,
who can play.
based on my quick review of this, I think it'd be acceptable to do it by way of resolution, because it's certainly not at odds with what's on your books here. It's not a new exemption.
Right.
It's currently there. Just to committee's point, by doing a resolution, you would just be clarifying your position, and it would be certainly enough to,
At least to start it right away.
right, and
until
then the
Board
next
of
event
Health.
doesn't have to be shut down.
Well,
Right.
the chief could tell somebody this event has been designated by the governing body as something that can play music.
Right.
And then you have something in a folder somewhere.
And
that
in the
says it's
meantime, we could still recommend the Board of Health making that exemption, but if it takes them,
Yeah.
6 months to get that done,
It's still something's out there.
it's
that
still
can be
something's
worked
out
on.
there that we can do now.
Right.
Alright, do we have a consensus
Steve,
on
how
that?
many complainants do you have?
Off the top of my head, I wouldn't know. I think we had 5 in the last week.
I believe,
So like
So
potentially
basically,
5
it's
residents.
anytime they have a game, we're getting phone calls.
That it's really games, it's not practices.
I would have to go back and look at our CAD.
Yeah.
But from what my officers tell me, it's typically during pre-warm-up during the game.
Okay. They're so buffered there, that's why I'm surprised. So we don't get those same complaints like for the around the high school? Like
No.
with baseball or?
No. And we don't get them at Nashville, then they routinely use an amplifier for music for the Little League.
And
We
these
cheat,
are
this
the-
is PA system, the PA system, or are they using their own
Both.
amplification?
Sometimes they play it over the PA, sometimes the coaches will bring out their own little box, so it's not as loud as over the PA system to try to alleviate
do you
a
know
phone call.
if it's the same person over and over again, or is
They
it?
come in anonymously, so.
Jeez.
That's what I was
I gotta assume
Okay.
it's one person
If
who
it's
doesn't like the
one person
music,
over
you
and
know.
over and over again, like, it's like,
We keep, what fields are these?
Cougars.
Just
Which
Cougar.
Just Cougars.
Just
Okay,
Cougar.
that's what I thought.
means it's high probability that it's not even
It's
somebody
not
who
even
lives
a
in
child,
Chatham. It's probably somebody in
exactly.
Madison.
that's what I was not gonna say it, but yeah. Anyway, do we have a consensus here to get a resolution on the next agenda and to also formally recommend, to the Board of Health to make this, change?
Fine by me.
Fine by me? Yes, alright, we're good, going forward, alright. Anything else for you?
Gotta hype up the Cougars.
I think the only other thing I had was the changing the towing fees.
The what?
The towing fees.
Oh, okay.
for the,
There was a memo that went out.
Yes.
I think we discussed it back in October.
Right. Any questions on that? And was that a,
So he prepared his memo,
Right.
and if there's an okay, then Pete will
Right.
draft the ordinance to adjust the fees based on that recommendation. So, you want to just recap your recommendation, so they're clear what they're.
Well, our current ordinance hasn't been redone since 2005, so our current fees are very, very low compared to other surrounding towns. So annually, I get a letter from our current vendors asking us to increase the fees to be in line with the borough, Chatham Borough and Madison. So that's what I'm recommending to do, just so we can keep our current vendors and not lose any.
sounds good to me. Is there a consensus? Yes?
So the fees are based off of what they're charging us, basically. And they're
What
not
they're
gonna do it
charging
No,
us,
anymore.
it's
yeah.
They're not gonna do it anymore, right, basically, if we don't.
More or less, yes.
Yeah.
Or they're just going to circumvent our ordinance and charge what they're gonna charge, and then risk being thrown off our list for violating our ordinance. So,
Fine by me.
Alright, we can move forward with that on the next agenda. Alright,
I think that's all I have.
you're all set. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thanks, Chief.
Have a good night.
Now we're on construction.
So coming up, Mayor, is John, who goes by Jack. Mr. Daniels is the new construction official. He has been on the job for a little over a month
A
now.
little over a month, since April
and,
3rd.
has been doing a fantastic job.
Thank you, sir.
He provided a report with his 30, 60, 90-day plan, highlighted a couple things for you as far as what's on the horizon. He and I meet quite regularly. I think he's probably getting sick of talking to me.
No, I'm not, actually, no, not yet.
But no, it's all good things, what's happening over there, so, Jack, you wanna just highlight, again, the
Sure.
items that you wanna focus on?
So, first I'll touch on, one of the 30-day action items, which is basically identifying, items within the department that, in my opinion, need to be addressed. I read that, or put them on the report. Some of them are such as, no zoning final inspections were being done. Where no UCC permits involved, a zoning inspection, if a permit's issued, should be done. It's required to be done to make sure whatever item's being permitted is actually being placed in the correct location. So we're gonna start instituting that, of course. Using the forms, finance, deposit timeframes, you know, just stuff on the surface that was immediately identified when I came in the door. So we've started hitting some of those things, so I just wanted to go over and touch on that. It's a work in progress. I still have to figure out and find out what all is going on. It's only been 5 weeks, so more research is needed, more fact finding. Onto a 60-day item that I highlighted for you folks. Develop forms that would be helpful to the residents, get them online. Right now, I think the only thing that is online is the zoning application, the tree permit, SDL. The system that we use has the capability of having those forms created. If we do them, it takes time to do them.
Yeah.
If they do them, they charge us, of course. So we have to look into that. Checklist. I'm big on documentation with checklists because that provides a standardized methodology of walking through the process. There's none of that over there right now. So things are done from memory depending on the person and who it is. And I'm finding a lot of stuff is, I won't say a lot, there's stuff that's often enough that causes a concern is being missed and not obtained, which is slowing down the process. So I want to create that checklist and provide that to both the applicants and the public as well as, of course, the staff. Having the public know it ahead of time is going to, of course, help us get the right stuff coming in the door. Again, begin the zoning inspections. I've started doing that myself, making sure that things are in the right place, and I keep getting that statement that Z and I have talked about and said we're not happy with that statement as well. I've always done it that way. So we're trying to work through that. Basically, that's it. Like I said, it's a work in progress. Any suggestions, by all means. Anything that you hear, by all means, let me know. I can't fix what I don't know.
Right.
So.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for coming in tonight, and I appreciate all your input. And I know we kind of just dropped you in there.
Yeah.
I did, I hope I had sent, I sent in questions, but I didn't get a response. And I didn't know if this was the appropriate forum, but I did want to find out about that River Road, because I've gotten questions about
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, so I mean, I had him touch on the improvements, that's what we talked about, but
Yes.
not the River Road, and I was hoping that
okay.
also when John gets up here, he can speak about, you know, the two of them can speak about that, but I didn't wanna respond by email on that one, because I think it is something that everybody needs to know about, so, why don't you, so, that's the
you
two
know, I
properties,
understand,
yeah.
but is that executive session?
No?
No, it's probably
If you
more.
want, I mean,
yeah.
No, I'm just worried of potential litigation type of thing.
No, I mean, these, I don't think they are. So
No,
these
no.
are zoning violations,
You're right.
that have occurred, it's all matter of public record.
Okay.
I don't know, what do you think?
And there's no threat of litigation.
No threat of litigation, I mean, it's,
So from background on that is I was contacted to, after hours I guess it was, we found out that there was work going on a Friday where the hillside by the PSE&G right-of-way, 614 and 616 River Road, was basically stripping the side of the mountain. Just took out all the trees and started changing the topography that's there. Multiple issues. I'm gonna turn to John. I think Dan.
Is this the property that?
Dan and you were involved in finding that?
Yeah, Dan actually stumbled across it.
Yeah.
Dan, one of my associates, he actually stumbled across it, and it was, we bring it up tonight because it was frankly a very gross violation. We have not seen this in a while where someone, clearly just cleared steep slopes and violated, the tree ordinance, lot grading ordinance. It was just clearly a significant violation, and on top of that, they took some of the soils and then they deposited on the opposite side of the road, which we believe is in the PSC&G right-of-way and may have impacted wetlands. So this goes on and on regarding the issues. We have issued both residents a notice of violation. I did issue summonses. They have issued a lot grading plan, which was grossly deficient. That was rejected immediately, and the last conversation I had with the residents is they have hired an engineer to start preparing a proper plan and identifying it. I suspect, we're going to end up going to municipal court. We're going to, deal with fines. We're going to go. I suspect that they're also going to be having to go to the Board of Adjustment because they violate steep slopes. So it is something that just bring to your attention. If you saw some of that significant, it wasn't something that was approved. It was something that the two residents are related. They're two brothers, so they were contracting this one contractor together, and so it's just an unfortunate situation.
And I did think it was a matter of public concern because there had been public members of the public calling and asking about this, and you drive by, you see this. There's no missing. What was done was pretty outrageous. So, for your benefit and for anybody watching, we just want people to know that it was not sanctioned. We are doing everything that we can to handle the matter.
So just so I understand, is it, the expectation from people I talk to is that the hill gets restored, and I don't, which of course is not doable, but we also don't want to, we don't want to let people just do that and then they get what they want, and so that they, if they were trying to tier that they, and how a contractor comes in and does that in such gross violation of New Jersey steep slope standards, let alone Chatham Township steep slope standards. I don't understand how that.
Yeah, that contract, John and I think it was John or maybe I talked about it, Jack or both of you, that contractor's license or, whatever, registration with the state certainly needs to be flagged as well, because, even after they were told, once, twice, and I think you know someone that had a chat with them, they kept going into the night, on Friday night, so, and then misrepresenting what was going on after, so.
Yep.
After the police spoke with the homeowners as well, so, big problem.
Yeah,
But
it
it's gonna be
does.
handled in
It's a very serious. Actually, the contractor never called for a utility markout. He's working on New Jersey on PSC&G's property. There could have been underground conduits. We have some major pipelines and some of their things. So this was just major. This is pretty significant violations that occur. So we are also going after the contractor. For the various things also for his involvement in it. Ultimately, we in these type of cases, we would recommend, to the prosecutor, maximum fines, penalties, and it's ultimately up to the judge to determine what, that ultimately is. So we can't dictate that. And how they restore it, it really is going to come down to, what has been done and what's the best way to restore, what damage has been done. And if it does go to the Board of Adjustment, they're going to have to put their proofs on the testimony regarding what happened and how they're going to restore it and what they're using it for, and they have to go through that due process.
Is it compromised in the meantime, because they were supposed to put up hay bales, you told them I didn't see any hay bales last time I drove.
No, they put up the stabilization mats are down, and that's not a wire, it's a fiberglass mesh.
Yes, they have done some improvements there. They could have done more.
Yes.
We have reached out to them to tell them. I'm always a little hesitant about letting a contractor back on that property, because the last time, they were directed to stop. We told them to just put the sill fence up, and then the next time they start doing more work, and they were moving more soils around. So I think it's stabilized to a degree at this point in time. At least until we can get the lot grading plan and see exactly, what the exact limit of disturbance, the percentage of steep slopes that were disturbed, and what's the best rate to restore it.
I think they were there either today or yesterday. Somebody saw them and they were putting out those mats. They rolled them out. So, hopefully they're doing what they're supposed to. I think Dan was checking on that.
Yeah, he was, yeah, we've been asking them to do a little bit more, but like I said, I was just kinda hesitant about getting the contractor remobilized, we don't wanna we just want him to, stabilize it, that's all.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I know you both were all on top of that.
Yeah, very good.
Very
I
concerning.
called Z that night when I got the text, and I was like, do you need me to do anything?
Yeah, it was going on Friday, Saturday, and then Monday.
Right, yeah. So in response to Madam Mayor, your comment, I thank you for the opportunity to service Chatham Township. I'm ecstatic about being here.
Oh, that's so great to hear. That's so great.
I'm very pleased to be here. And the contractors, the public, everybody is just so gracious and pleasant to deal with. So, yeah, it's like,
Except this one
I
guy on
think I
River
stepped
Road,
in it.
apparently.
I think I stepped in it. Yes, it's, what do they call that period? So hopefully it
That's so
stays that
great
way,
to
but,
hear. I'm so glad. Well, it sounds like such a wonderful fit. I'm really glad you're enjoying yourself, and we're very happy to have you.
thank you.
So does anybody else have any
In
questions?
fact, there was a prior unauthorized PC&G road opening where the township fought them and stymied their work. They're trying to get the permits, I think they did. We have a requirement for saw cutting on the roads, and they just went in there with backhoes and just ripped it up. I don't know, maybe 100 yards, 110 yards. This is the old, well, not old, no, it's a,
This is at the other side of the township, correct? Is that where you're talking?
this is off Fairmount Road.
Yeah, that's, I've got it here.
They're
We're
all-
talking, the PSNG,
Next to Road.
unauthorized road opening.
Right.
Do you remember?
Mohawk.
Small hot one. And so they actually were back, the crew was there for a couple of days. And they just laid down the cabin and left. Like-
It's temporary pavement. They do come back after a settlement period to actually mill out a larger area.
They will,
They will,
okay,
yeah,
just wanna
that's-
make sure.
Yeah, no, they do, it's a temporary pavement, and it's in our ordinance, and that every utility has to do that, is that we have a 6-month settlement period.
Correct.
We don't want them to restore the trench right away, because you do see settlement.
Settle,
So we want the trench to settle, and then they come back, and then when they come back, they actually overmill the temporary pavement so that it's a new stretch.
Okay.
What's our moratorium period? Is it 5 years?
Yeah, well, appreciate you guys jumping on that on Friday night. Like, kidding aside, though, I do think it's sort of in keeping with what I think, the unified sort of one of the primary focuses of this body is about, shoring up Chatham Township's reputation as a law and order type place, where we don't tolerate lawlessness, and that goes from auto theft to unauthorized tree cutting to this nonsense, so it's important to enforce our rules at all levels, so appreciate you guys staying on top of that.
Thank you, I'll take that as I have authority.
Absolutely. There are 2 pieces of legislation also related to construction building. One is the SDL renewal. So annual item until such time, I know Finance Committee, we were talking about procurement for the town, but until such time that this needs to be before the governing body for your approval. Nothing really changing in terms of how many seats and licenses or modules, but the cost is increasing from spatial data logic, but minimal amount to be expected. And then the other one is to accept the resignation of our fire subcode official, who is working towards retirement, and so that's why he submitted his resignation. So we need your resolution to accept that formally, and Jack and I have started to talk about restructuring and other plans for backfilling this position and ensuring that plan review and inspections are all done in a timely manner and staffed sufficiently so that there's good communication between the staff and that the public gets a good turnaround time on the reviews. say in the next 60 days, that there will be some, recommendations to hire and staff changes.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, John.
And John, you're up.
Sorry, John, you had the most on the agenda, so.
That's okay.
I'll stick
I
here.
thought you were saving the best for last, but I figured that's.
No,
what
that's
was.
it too, yeah.
We're still having after.
Yeah, can you give that to, Rich when he comes in, Mike? So.
John's got a number of things on the agenda. Big one, the Lafayette Sidewalk Project Contract Award. Do you want to just give him an update on that,
Sure, we
please?
did receive, bids for the, Spring Street, Lafayette Sidewalk Project, long-awaited 2014 grant. We did receive, 4 bids. 3 of the bids were within the, federal funding that we had. We had 1 bid that was over, but that's not critical because, I've had plenty of projects where the DOT would just give you additional funding. It is, they cover 100% of the construction cost, so. But it is, this process, never stops regarding the number of approvals and steps you have to go through with these federal grants. And so we're at a point now where we received the bids. It has to be, all the information has to be forwarded to the Civil Rights Department at the DOT to review particular paperwork that they submitted regarding there's a WBE 5% requirement, and they have to review the forms, see who their subs are, make sure their subs are properly licensed, and it goes through a whole process. The DOT even warned me about this because they've had a number of projects where contractors are simply just not filling out these forms correctly, and they've had projects where not the first, second, or third, fourth bidder is being awarded a project, and it's just concerning of them that that they're not, contractors are not filling the forms out. So even when we went out to bid, I actually had those pages instructing the contractor to fill out those forms. I put the forms in pink, highlighted them, made sure they knew exactly what they needed to do, and yet the low bidder may have, not correctly. I don't think he did the forms correctly. He may be thrown out, so if we have to go to the second bidder, it's not an issue. I've actually worked with all 4 of the bidders, so it's not an issue regarding the qualifications of the contractors. We're fine either way, but I think at this point in time, my main concern is I would love to have this construction start in the summertime. I want the work to happen when school is out. And we have a very tight time frame. I know it's only the beginning of May, but we have to get through the DOT, there are 2 departments of the DOT to sign off on this, to give us authorization to award. And ultimately, we have to award, get contracts in place, get a notice to bid, notice to proceed, and all that. So, time is of the essence. So I would love to say that we can award this project in the second meeting in May, but I don't think we're going to get through the DOT to get through that. It's going to be the June meeting, and unfortunately, we may be at the last wire identifying who the contractor is going to be that we're going to award to, because we have to get through the DOT has to review the bids and sign off on it before we can award a contingent upon DOT, but we need to know which contractor to award to. So that's a process that I think we just need to get through the DOT, and so I think that's going to be hopefully on the agenda for June. I hope it's not July, because that's going to push us into September, and it's just not, we just don't want it. But
Now,
I'm
are you
doing my best.
saying June because the DOT is going to take that long, or is our structure here with the workshops and the voting meetings throwing you off?
DOT is absolutely going to take at least 30 days to review this and get back to us, and they're notorious to be more like 45 days to 60 days. It will be a miracle if they turn around and get this in 2 weeks, where we can actually get it on the May meeting. I would love to, and I would love to award it contingent upon their approval. We've done that for municipal aid, where we don't, it's a different process, but this I'd be hesitant about awarding it, knowing that the way they scrutinize these forms and for the WBE requirements, we really need to get them to tell us which contractor is okay, which ones are eligible. We reviewed it. Peter and I reviewed it, and certainly all 4 of the contractors met the local public contract laws, and we could award them based on the local contract laws. But they haven't satisfied. We can't definitely say they satisfy the federal requirements, because ultimately, we can't make that determination anyway. It's the Civil Rights Department that has to ultimately sign off and give us that. So we're
Yeah.
kind of at their whim.
I guess what I'm getting at is if our schedule
Yeah, we'll
is delaying
adjust.
things, then we could either add, do it in a workshop or add, I just wouldn't want this committee schedule to slow.
Yeah, we can.
I'll work with Peter and John on trying to expedite it as much as we can.
Even if we have to add a
Yeah.
meeting and we do it virtually,
Yeah.
real quick just to approve.
Yeah.
Yep.
Something to consider, only because we truly want to get this done on the summertime. That's the best time to do
Oh,
it.
yeah. No,
It really is only a 45 days, 60 days maximum project. It should go relatively quick, and so it's ideally to have it done July, August.
We're gonna get a lot of calls if it's in September.
Oh, I know, I know.
I'm gonna skip around a little bit for
Sure.
John, though. The Pine Street easement, that was labeled on the agenda, that was meant to be the Linden Lane, which we
Got it.
briefly talked about in executive,
No, it-
which,
There's Pine Street
well, I'll say the Pine
Road.
Street easement, so that one we can just skip past.
That's Linden Lane easement.
Yeah, I'm looking at the old one, I'm sorry.
Got it.
That was, I apologize. That was number 4, sorry.
Got it.
So, yeah, Pine Street Road project, that one we are gonna be seeking authorization to bid.
Advertise, yes.
Advertise to bid,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
that was the grant we got,
250 or 260,000. It should cover almost 100% of the work. So it's work, we're milling and paving Pine Street, but we're also adding in some additional drainage work. There's a couple of areas on the road that just start low, it's periodic flooding, and it's more like nuisance puddling, but we want to eliminate that because we've gotten, years of complaints about the area, we want to just fix it. So this project does involve some drainage, it's fixing the ADA ramps at the intersection of Lafayette, so it's a couple of incidental items in addition to the paving, but, we're all set to go out to bid with that project.
And then the other 2 items, which are really their model ordinances, I just want to clarify, we're not suggesting that they be introduced at the next meeting. And I know that there was a subcommittee with the deputy mayor and committee woman on the tree removal ordinance, but coincidentally, the state passed new regulations related to stormwater, and these 2 are part of that package. So these are the minimum ordinances that are required, and we provide them to you as a model. So,
Sure, yeah, I would say the first one being, the model ordinance is to regulate storage of salt on private property. And we really don't have a lot of entities that actually do that. I know there's at least one contractor on Green Village Road that does this, and it's not a large pile. We may have, like Hickory Square Apartments, maybe they have a pile that they maintain, but it's really just, it's just another regulation that the DEP is imposing on private property. And so it's a model ordinance. I don't see, we can certainly, review it and such, but I don't think there's, a lot of impact on that. It's pretty straightforward, that particular ordinance. The tree ordinance is something that's, it's a bit controversial because the DEP really didn't solicit any feedback from the industry or any groups on the implementation of it. And I know, at the very least, the New Jersey Society of Municipal Engineers is writing a letter and just, objecting to how the ordinance was adopted and what they're imposing on residents. But nevertheless, they have implemented it. It may be rescinded, it may be changed because there's a lot of opposition of how they're regulating trees on every single property. And not every town has a tree ordinance. And those towns that don't have a tree ordinance, now all of a sudden you're imposing every single resident has to get a tree permit, and permanent tree is being very controversial. But for us, DEP's ordinance focuses more on tree replacement versus our ordinance currently focuses more on density. You have to maintain a minimum density on a lot. DEP's ordinance is just saying you remove a tree, you have to replace a tree. And that's basically the fundamentally of the ordinance. And the larger the tree, the more replacements that you have to make. And that's we actually had a similar ordinance, maybe 20 years ago. We were just doing more replacements. And I just have to emphasize that even the DEP ordinance does not have that threshold where it's prohibiting a tree removal. It's always very controversial on these tree ordinances. When is there a circumstances that you're actually prohibiting, telling a resident you cannot take down that tree? And the DEP ordinance is not that at all. It's similar to most tree ordinances that municipality has, where you're regulating trees and you're just doing replacement versus prohibiting. There's a couple of things in the state ordinance, like it exempts nuisance trees on replacing, you know, there's some of it doesn't define what a nuisance tree is, so there's a lot of flaws that whoever wrote it really didn't have a background on like zoning and enforcement and just really scrutinizing the language in the ordinance, because it's just so much, it's too subjective in some areas. You know, an ordinance has to be very direct, and, you know, not up to interpretation. So,
When did the state put, in terms of a timeline on adopting?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we have like a year.
Right, I think it was sometime in 2024.
Yeah,
so.
it's like a year we have to implement it. So, there's things to be worked out, and in fact, our ordinance may be acceptable to them. It's their model ordinance. You know, I already had discussions, and it's more of the intent of what you're trying to preserve the tree. So our ordinance may be fine, but we'll have to work that out. Because I know we wanted to just look at our ordinance again, and so maybe we have some, you know, we want to balance something and incorporate some things that the DEP did, because you know, they're focusing more on replacement and more of a penalty. If a larger tree you remove, there's more like a penalty. Okay, now you have to remove. You're removing a 36-inch tree. Now you have to replace it with 5, and so you know there's a penalty for the larger the tree, the more you have to replace.
So we'll revisit that with the subcommittee on the trees, but just want to put these on your radar as part of the new state requirements.
Well, and then I shared the environmental commission, you know, had done their study, so either they can come in and present to the committee or the subcommittee, we can decide what level, which, I mean,
How
they
would you
can come
like
in
to
to.
handle it?
Do we have 2 meetings in June? Do we
No,
No, we only have one.
Is it one?
Yeah, well, let's get the
We
order.
only have one.
I mean, I don't think it's gonna be very long, so we could have them come in June.
When I was looking at the model ordinance, the biggest thing there is that they want 6-inch. And are you saying that
Yeah, they do.
is
Yeah, they
it-
do.
Is
They
that
do.
flexible? Because our current ordinance is 12.
You know,
And just to get this all out, I just say Harding has none, Madison's 18 inches, Long
No.
Hill's 12 inches.
Medicine changes 6 inches.
Their forms still say 18. I was on their website today. New Providence, the first 3 are accepted no matter what, and it's $10 a tree. And then I think the real issue with this in terms of environmentally is just, this doesn't address anything about steep slopes or wetlands or anything. Like, you know, it's just on the property, right?
yeah,
So
it is separate. You know, there's other regulations
it
for
doesn't
wetlands.
take our
for-
local issue, which is the steep slopes, you know, stability and.
Well, what's interesting about this ordinance is like there's nothing in the permit and the law that justifies and supports this ordinance. There's like a one-line language in the permit, and it's just regulating, you know, minimizing tree removal, and that's it. And it doesn't say that, you know. So how the state came back and said this was going to be your model ordinance. You know, there's no statute that supports what they did, and so there's, you know, there are some of the other model ordinances that they did. You know, the regulations supported it and the language that they did, but this tree ordinance is not supported by anything other than one sentence that's in the permit, and so that's why I think it's gonna there's gonna be some, you know, revamping, I suspect, of this permit. I just don't see them going and supporting this.
And just with the salt storage, I'm mostly concerned about our clubs and our houses of worship that store salt. Are they gonna also fall under this ordinance?
I have to read the ordinance closely. It's very general the way they described it. So, and then it's not an overburdened ordinance that they're just telling you need to keep it covered. Is really what they say. It's not something.
Which you would do anyway unless you wanted it to all melt, right?
Yeah, you know, it's really just, it's more of, you know, best management practices associated with handling salt. So it's not like it's imposing a lot of restrictions on I don't see that being an overburdened ordinance on even for churches or for apartment buildings and stuff. You know, simple things of you know, keeping it neat and cleaning up the pile at the end of the storm and keeping it covered. You know, those are just practical
Okay, because I
things.
read it like it was a corral and you had to have it roofed, but you're saying it's not that.
You can have just covering. Yeah, most municipalities just have it covered.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay,
Nothing on this report?
nothing else?
Thank you. Nice job, Director.
Okay.
It's good, thanks.
Thank you
All right.
very much. Greg, you're up.
Any questions on the monthly report that I submitted?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
I did have a question. Raffle license fees, why did I write this one?
Well, that was a separate memo. I was first looking at the
Oh,
monthly
got it.
report,
Okay.
before I go into that. But
Okay.
if there's no questions on that, I'm sure you all read the memo, which I'm sure was riveting about raffle license fees. I mainly wanted to bring this to the committee's attention as an option. It's up to you if you feel that it would be appropriate to charge a fee. Back in 2006, it came to the township's attention that the state allows towns, if we don't have an ordinance at all, then we would default to the state fees. When I started here in the dark ages of 2006, we were charging $4 a license. My predecessor brought it to the committee's attention that we could raise it. Committee decided to not charge a fee at all, because in order to get a license, you have to be a nonprofit, and they didn't want to charge nonprofits. But since it's been a while, I figured I'd bring it to your attention to see if you had interest.
So that was my question. I thought all the organizations seeking raffle licenses were
Yeah.
nonprofits, so.
Yeah, but I
so
only
no.
raise it just as an option. Doesn't make a difference to me if we charge a fee or not. I just wanted to give you the option, just since fees are something we should revisit periodically.
And I appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
So,
Anybody have?
You still have to get a license.
yeah, they would still have to get the license. Madison charges a state fee. Chatham Borough doesn't allow raffles at all, so there's anywhere in between.
How many licenses do we issue generally?
I have that in my memo. I think it's, anywhere from 15 to 20 a year. And, most of the raffle fees would be $20 per license. There would be a couple that would be 100. So I would imagine this would be anywhere from 300 to 700 or 800 in a year. It's not gonna make or break us.
We're talking about the volunteer fire department and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it'd be St. Hubert's, Corpus Christi, St. Pat's. It's
They're all benefiting the community, you
Yeah,
know, with these
yeah.
monies.
I don't think we need their
It's,
$700 bucks.
for the seven.
Appreciate you bringing it up.
I appreciate you bringing it up. I think, yeah.
Yeah,
There's cat owners that get their licenses. I wanna crack down on them.
Like I said, I just felt it was my duty to bring it to your attention as an option.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. But I think our consensus is pretty much like,
Yeah.
if they're all nonprofits.
Yeah, I mean, we can, just as happy to leave it where it is.
All right, the last is, the Gov Deals auction. I
Just
don't know.
letting you know, Mayor and Committee, that, for the second
Awesome.
time, this year, we're looking at all kinds of surplus property to auction and, put together, with DPW's help, quite an extensive list of items to go up for auction. So at the next meeting, we hope to do that. I think almost everything except maybe one thing from the last auction sold. So even the old phone system that had been sitting on the bookshelves collecting dust, finally we got rid of.
Great.
So, unless there's any objections, we'd like to do the same thing and get some money for the town and clear up some space around here.
It's
Perfect.
a pretty routine thing.
Sounds good. Okay, so then I'm going to just move straight into our last hearing of citizens. All the stuff from before applies, and I don't see anybody here. Is there anybody on Zoom?
We do not have any hands raised.
All right, then I'm going to close the hearing of citizens, and since there's nothing for executive session number 2, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Not going well, Greg.
On YouTube, a lot of people do end up watching it afterwards.
Recording
while I-
stopped.
Yeah, they usually like replay it, like we'll clip it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were gonna eat at Marsh Plains,